Hi everyone, thanks for joining today. We're going to do the DS160 form today. I think I'm going to provide the URL below link so you can take it from there. And once you hit the URL, it's going to ask you the location and you need to pass the code, wait for the code to repopulate. And then once you click on that, you need to click on start an application. So once the application is started, so it's going to ask you the security question. I think make sure you have the passport, I-797 approved form. Along with that, you have your certificates and your past 5 years experience and your travel dates before to India, and as well as your travels to other countries. And then once you have it, you're going to land onto the personal information page one, where you should have your passport along with you, and then fill up all the information like the surname, given name, and other information on this page. And it's very straightforward here, uh, nothing specific. So you just need to fill up this form and then make sure to save this form, and so that way at least whatever you filled up, it's been saved into the DS160 form, so we don't need to worry about it. So you can able to pull it up back or retrieve it whenever you want for the next 30 days. So and make sure you actually do follow as per your passport, and make sure it's been as per your passport, or else it'll be a problem for you, or else you need to refill the DS160. I think make sure you fill the information correctly, or else they end up you end up actually creating one more DS160 later in the phase. So once you click on next, so you'll see a few more questions about your nationality. It's going to be your passport, it's India, and then did you carry any other nationalities? It's no, and then if you've been in US before, you'll have a social security number. I prefer to give social security number rather than giving the tax ID or the national identification number. So that way it'll be very easy for them to pull it up, your information. And once you do that, make sure you save the page always. And once you save it, and then click on continue application. That way you always have application actually saved. So as you see, I am actually saving my application ID for me. If you want to retrieve back, I can able to retrieve back with that application ID. So that's very important for you to do it. And then you need to, the next page is going to be your travel information. What is the purpose of this visa? It's going to be temporary worker, because since you're in H1B. If you're an F1, it's going to be student visa. And if you're in a business visitor visa, it's going to be temporary business visa as well for your parents. Mostly it happens for your parents. So once you select it, and if you have any specific travel dates, make sure it's yes. Even though you don't have a ticket, it's okay for you. And you need to mention it as yes, and you can mention it as approximate time when you're planning to travel back. So that way it will be very easy for them. So once you select the H1B, if you look at on the screen, it's popped up what is your petition number. So that way they can able to correlate your information in the system to make sure that you actually have a H1B. So if you look at, okay, once you click on yes, it opens one more column which asks you for your information about when you're arriving to US and which city. Even though you don't know about your flight details, it's okay. You're just putting it as an assumption that you're traveling during the June 1st, 2020, and arriving city San Francisco, and you need to put the departure city as well, or the departure date as per your H1B approved letter. Say for example, you got approved for until December 2022, so you need to mention saying that you're coming back on December 2020. Even though you're staying it, even though your H1B is getting extended, but you still need to put that information here saying that you're coming back on December 1st, just for the sake of DS160 at this point in time. If your visa get extended, I think yes, that's valid scenario. And the next column is going to be where you're going to stay in United States as you come here. So make sure to mention the address. Make sure to enter the address which at least for your friend's place, because you never been to US. That's okay, but at least enter some address, so that way they know, okay, you're going to live there. In case if they want any documentation that they need to send it across, they can send it across to you. Or in case they need to know where you are, they should be able to know it. And person sponsoring for this visa is going to be self, because you're sponsoring for yourself to go there. So once you make sure you click on save, so that way it will be saved in the system. And is there any persons traveling, because since you put it as single, it's no. If you put it as married, sometimes it might be yes, because your wife might be traveling with you. Sometimes it might be no, your wife might not be traveling with you. So, and then next goes back to the previous year's travels. where you need to mention okay whether you've been in US or not. In this example, I'm going to choose yes. If it's no, there is nothing here. So if it's yes, I think it's going to be one more column is going to come up very soon. So when you actually arrived, I think here is the tricky thing. So a lot of people actually been in US for a long time, maybe like 10 years, 5 years, and they've been visited India a couple of times. Make sure you put the latest one on the top. So that means the latest visit. Say for example in 2020 you're visiting, make sure you put the 2020 arrival date, or 2019 whenever you arrived in US, the latest arrival date, and how long you stayed. And then make sure you mention that way so they know actually you've been arrived recently or you've been there in that country recently. So if you have multiple stays, I think make sure you mention that. So you, even though you don't know the dates, approximate dates, you should be able to find it in the passport, the date of arrival that you came here, the date of arrival that you actually went to US. So you can able to refer those. If you don't have those passports, I can say that you can assume few things to the approximate in the month. You don't need to know about the exact date. So and then once you say that you're actually been in United States, you will see the driver's license popped up and you need to mention okay where it is, which state it is, and what is the driver's license number. And have you ever been issued a US visa? You should say yes. The reason behind is you actually been said okay you're already having a license. So and then make sure you mention okay what is the date of issuing the last visa and what is the visa number, and are you applying for the same visa. Sometimes people might be applying for the same visa for H1B, and sometimes might be people might be converting from F1 to H1B. So you need to be careful of what you're putting here. So that is one thing. And uh, and then the remaining questions are actually very simple. Have you been lost your passport or visa? No. And have been 10 printed? I think most of the people who are actually did given the visa after like 2009 or 2011, so they're actually being 10 printed. But if you have any doubts or something, you can feel free to put no, so it's not a problem. They should be able to take the 10 prints when you actually go to the on the first day for the picture. So the remaining questions, so sometimes I think people who actually had your I-140, so they should say yes to the last question because the immigration petition has been filed on their behalf to the United States of Citizenship and Immigration, and you just need to mention say yes, and I-140 the status is approved and this application number. So that way they know okay you've been there in years and you've been already qualified as a specially immigrant, and you applied for your green card which is in the process of getting it, and your I-140 is approved. Okay, and then click on save as you do it, and then click on the next information is address and phone number. And okay, it looks like I had a visa number issue, so I'm going to correct it and make it correct, and then proceed to the next page. So as you go through, I think you just need to enter the home address, zip code, and everything, and your phone number, because since you are actually supposed to be in India, because since you are applying this visa, even though you are in United States or you are in some other country, when you're applying, filling up this form, you always need to put the local address, because since you are actually applying from the local, because since even though you've been applying in advance from United States, but your always should be local address so that they can able to reach out to you in case of any reschedule and stuff like that. So and you should provide the phone numbers to be which is local, your dad's phone number or some who is available for at least to answer a phone call or to at least get some messages they can able to read through. And while you're doing that, make sure you actually pay your fee with the application ID, because you already have the application ID even though you did not fill the application as such. So you can actually book your appointments right then, so even though you don't fill the application yet. So that's one of the important learnings that I had in my career, and I actually missed an opportunity to get the better visa dates. So and then for the secondary phone number, you can actually mention your United States number, just in case if they want to reach out to you to the secondary number. So when you're there, you should be able to answer it. So have you been any used any other numbers? If you have any, you should say yes and then put those numbers in. And the same thing with the email address, and coming to the same thing with the social media and things like that. So it's just more about the information, nothing worrying or like nothing is abnormal here, you should be able to answer them very easily. So Facebook, you just need to mention the names, so that should be taking care of them. So this is, I think it's taking some time to pop up, so that's the reason that the screen got. And then once I click on save, that's when you should be able to see those red marks coming through. So then I'm going to update that information. See here, so I'm going to update that additional information of the emails. So then Facebook, I'm going to put my name. So you can add as many as you can. You can add like Snapchat or Instagram or Facebook or YouTube and everything here. Even you can add your LinkedIn. And the last one is like if you have any content that you actually published in the websites which you want to share with them, you should say yes and then provide that information to them just for reference for them. I think it looks like something is fishy here because I'm using Mac. When I hit on tab, it's going somewhere else. That might be the problem here. Okay, then once you see that the application is filled up, click on save. See here when I put yes, I think you're having some information. You can say XYZ and then put some information. And then click on continue and then click on next, which is the passport information. Make sure you have a passport, you have your I-797, you have your degrees, and you have past 5 years experience documents or experience dates of your employment and previous travel to India and previous countries that you traveled in the last 5 years. And all this information on this page is more very mimic what is there in your passport. I think every detail of your passport is supposed to be here. It's regular passport number and the city that has been issued your passport, and then it's whatever is being showed in the passport. You don't need to enter like if some information like state is not there, so you don't need to enter the state even though you know the state, because since your passport doesn't really have that information. Okay, and then and have you been ever stolen or lost your passport? You should say if it's yes, you should say yes. If it's no, it's no. And then as usual, click on save and then continue application. So next goes to the US contact. I think most of the time I think I prefer to give the HR contact, so that way it'll be very easy for them to get hold of whom you're going, where you're reporting. So that's the reason it'll be very helpful. Or if you don't feel comfortable, I think it's better to give your friend's phone number and friend's name and the email address. So that way it'll be very easy. And then the organization name, if you're giving your employer, you should say a company name. If it's not, do not know, and then you can set it as an employer. So or it's a friend if it's a friend. And then the address or the point of contact, make sure you mention your office address instead of their personal address, because everyone has their own address. Because since you're reporting, you're saying it's a HR of your company or an employee of your company, it's better to mention the employee's employer address. So you just need to fill up the information as. So this information is actually available in your I-797 petition form about your employee's address. So you should be able to copy that information here, or like write down that information here, because since it's already there with you handy. Provide your employer HR's email address. If you don't know it, you can say you don't know it. So that doesn't going to be creating any problem with them. So click on save as usual, and then next you're going to be family information about your father, about your father's surname, and as well as a given name and the date of birth, and whether his father is actually living in US or it's in India. So and you just need to enter your mother's information, your surname, first name, and date of birth. And do you have any immediate relatives like your brother, cousin, or siblings? If it's not, no. And then if you have any, I think you should put S and then put those names and relation to you and relation status. If you put no, there is nothing. They're going to ask you. They're going to ask you whether you have any extended relatives. You should say yes if you have any. If you say no, it's no. And then click on save as usual. Proceed to the next page. So it's going to be the work, education, and training. So the work is in the past 5 years have been worked in which are all the companies. It's engineering because my primary occupation is engineering, so I selected engineering. If it's government legal, I think make sure you mention that. If it's a student, mention it's a student, and your employer, your address, employer's address, and then the city. The information showing on the screen is pretty much straightforward. I don't think I need to talk much because since it's very straightforward, which the information you mostly guys are aware about it. So the start date of your employment, and what is your monthly average. You don't need to worry about, okay, I'm getting like 10,000 10 cents, or like is it like 5,000 20 cents, stuff like that. Put an approximate number that you are aware of. They are not going to check about the pennies that you're getting. They're going to check about like. And this you should be a little careful about your duties, because the duties that you're mentioning here is going to be available for the visa interviewer. Make sure you mention the duties that you are having on your H1B petition. Make sure those are actually matching with you, which is matching here, and make sure it's on very brief. You're not going to be detailing out, okay, what is supposed to be working. You just need to be brief on what you're supposed to, what you're doing actually. and click on save as usual, and then click on next. So and yeah, so I think your education piece is going to no. I'm going to put no. I think if you put yes, I think it's going to ask you what are all the previous employers that you worked on and have been attended any education institution secondary level or above. So I think that in India, I think especially in Andhra Pradesh, I think we have like 10th class or CBSE 10th class, which is like secondary level or above, and then anything that you do after that is like plus one, plus two, or it's inter first year and second year, which is called Board of Engineering Education. And then people do like a bachelor's degree, or and then they do master's degree if they come to US on a master's degree. And it's most of the cases it's master degree, and most of the cases it's going to be bachelor's plus one, plus two, and then secondary school certificate or CBSE, which is for the central schools. So you decide what flavor you belongs to. So in this case, I'm going to demonstrate the master's degree, bachelor's degree, and plus one, plus two, and as well as the secondary certificate, which is very equivalent to CBSE. Okay, and then you need to mention the dates, which is a little careful. Make sure, you, as I mentioned you before, you need to get all your degrees handy. So those you know the dates from the certificates and the minimal information about the address, phone number, not the phone number, like the state and the zip code. So so that is very critical for you because since you need to mention all those dates here, and those dates are actually a little tricky because the master's degrees can be like a year or like it's 2 years. Sometimes the bachelor's degree can be 4 years or can be 5 years, and plus one, plus two can be 2 years or 2.5 years or 3 years. And the same thing applies for secondary degree. It's going to be mostly 1 year, but it's going to be matters as your dates should match everything together. And if you have a break in the middle, make sure you have those numbers, the data of attendance from and two matches to each other. So as I mentioned you, as you're filling up this application, it's pretty much straightforward. As long as you have the degree certificates with you, make sure you mention the address properly. Make sure you mention the name of the institution. Name of the institution may not be your institution. Sometimes it is the institution that you got the certificate from. It's JNTU, for example, or is it going to be Usmania University? And but coming to the Board of Intermediate Education, where I think your course of study is going to be Board of Intermediate Education, and then your actual institution is going to be local institution. Maybe it's like Narayana or Chaitanya or something like that, or NRI or anything else, or CBSE. And coming to the other side of the fence is going to be coming to the secondary degree is going to be CBSE or SSE is going to be your course of study, and your institution is going to be like your school, which is going to be a school name and then the corresponding address because your course of study is going to be secondary education or CBSE. So that is you should remember it. I think as I go through, as I mentioned it before, I think these are all the set of documents that you needed to have your DS-160 filled. One is your passport, which is mandatory. The other one is I-797, which is approved I-797, which you need to have that information with you, and your degree certificates, which is going to help you on this page to write down all the information. And you need to know your past 5 years of experience working in the United States or in India. You need to know those dates and your duties and responsibilities and your salaries. And you need your salaries for only the first one, not for the latest one which you're working on, not for the previous one. And but you need to mention the duties for everything. And then you need to mention your you should have always the previous travel dates to India and previous travel to other countries in the last 5 years. Like you might be going to Dubai for a visit, or you might be going to Thailand for a visit. So you need to make sure that you have those information with you. If you don't have those information, it's going to be tough for you to fill the DS-160. So some of the mistakes I have done, like maybe the slash, because since I'm demonstrating with you, so I put that slash. So 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 there's one more mistake. I'm going to rectify it, and I'm going to click on save as usual, and then I'm going to continue the application. So that way it will be very easy for me to retrieve back the application, because especially this page of the application is going to be very huge. If you look at, there are like your master's degree, your bachelor's degree, your plus one, plus two, and as well as your secondary school degree. Make sure you have those information with you, and make sure that you save it if you are actually updating master's degree, because since sometimes it might take a lot of time, because as I'm demoing it, I'm writing down very fastly and putting some random information, but when you actually look at the certificate and write the information, it's going to be taking a lot of time. So I would highly recommend you actually save the application after your master's degree, after your bachelor's degree, after your plus one and plus two, and after your secondary and CBSE. And if you don't do that, it's going to be impacting you. I had personally seen it's got impacted to me. I prefer you guys do a better job doing it, because I have to fill the application multiple times, multiple the same information, and which is going to be irritating process for you. So I would highly recommend you to save it, and then click on save, and make sure if there's any mistakes, make sure to rectify them, and go to the next page. So saving is very important thing, because since you'll not know when your internet connection is bad, or when the connection is getting timed out on the USCS website, on the website side, or it might be a number of reasons. I prefer, because since this is a static information, I prefer you guys do that. And going to the next page, it's going to be your languages that you know of: English, Hindi, or like Urdu, the whatever language that you know of. Make sure you mention English on the top, so that way they know, okay, your priority language is speaking is English. And have you been traveled to other countries in the last 5 years? As I mentioned with you, you need to always have a copy of it. Like, what are the list of countries that you've been visited? So I clicked on yes, but there's supposed to be a table popped up, but it did not pop up. Sometimes there's a cache issue. When I click on save, that's when it's going to be popped up with an error saying that, okay, what are all the countries that I need to put in. See here, I got the error. Now I'm going to list down all the countries. So whichever I was in India, I was in India. Yes, I was in India. And maybe I was in yes, I was in Dubai, so that means United Arab Emirates. So that I need to mention I was in Sri South Africa as well, so I need to mention that as well. So make sure you have those listed with you, so that way you don't need to go back and think about, okay, what are all the countries that I have visited in the last 5 years. Most of the people do remember that, so we don't need to worry much. And the next set of questions is going to be security and background. Most of these questions are like more formal questions. I think for most of the people it's going to be no for a lot of these questions, because since those are actually very straightforward, saying that, okay, have been in any diseases, no. And then, as I mentioned, you make sure you have your application ID. So physical disorder, no. And drug abuse, no. So it's morely like the security questions, to make sure that they've been going through with you. So I don't think you need to be panicking about these things. I think I would like, so most of the questions you can actually put no without looking at the question, but I think I would request you to read at least once, to make sure that you actually never cross those boundaries, or never actually did something bad. So okay, and then click on continue application. So it's going to be very straightforward. I don't think we need to worry about these things much. So I normally just put it as no for most of these questions. So coming to the temporary visa information, I think you need to have your I-797 form here, and then put the receipt number here, whichever is there on that. It's going to be start with WAC for most of the people. I think if it's a different name, make sure you start those numbers here, and mention your company name, company's address, and so, and then company's contact numbers, so that way they, just in case if they want to contact. And what is your monthly income? It's going to be approximate. You don't need to be accurate about the pennies or cents that you're earning. So it's like, if you're earning 120K, it's going to be like 10 grand every month. So, and click on save. As usual, make sure you click on save so the information whichever you've been entered is actually saved. And the next one is, okay, you actually filled up all the application. Now it's an opportunity for you to go back and review it. So as I mentioned with you, you need to always have handy these five things. One is your passport, the other one is I-797, the other one is degrees, the other one is past 5 years experience, and the previous travels to India, previous countries that you visited. And then once you have it, make sure you get those printouts of all these documents that you've been reviewing it, and make sure you validate one by one with your hand, with the passport, or with your I-797. A small mistake can actually make you write the entire DS-160 one more time, which is going to be a little hectic process, and it might happen for a lot of people. I would recommend you actually take the printouts, do word by word comparison to make sure the DS-160 is right. Even though you fill the DS-160 within 30 minutes, as I walk through with the video, I would request you to take the printouts. So, and the last page is going to be you need to sign that your page. And then, did anyone help you in preparing? So no, you just got the information from me, some basic information, but you are actually filling the application by yourself. I'm just guiding you how to do it, but yeah, I'm not assisting you what to do. So, and then once you enter passport information, I entered the passport information wrong here, so I would request you to make sure you enter the passport number right. So once it's actually submitted, there is no way that you can update it. And once you submit it, I think you actually get the confirmation email that your DS-160 has been submitted. You don't need to take the printouts that you took before with you, because it's not needed for the application, and it's not needed for the visa officer to have those documents for you. So the only thing that they need is your DS-160 confirmation letter saying that, okay, you submitted the DS-160 and this is what the confirmation number, this is what the application ID looks like. And then once you have your application ID, you can actually, in the meantime, when you're filling this application, you can actually create a account for your visa slot, and then you can pay the fee either in your home country, or you can do a neft transfer, or you can do an online transfer with Bank of America. So I'm going to show those information in my next video how to do that. Once you submit the DS-160, make sure you carry the DS-160 confirmation, not the printouts. I think make sure you can carry the confirmation, not the printouts. It's not needed. Even though you have the printouts, keep it with you. So once you sign it and then confirm it, there is no way that you can able to go back and edit. So if you want to have any mistakes that you have done, you need to go back and fill the new application. So always take a printout, or save a local copy, or send it to another email address which you have it handy. So or else you'll be like losing track of it. So thanks everyone for actually listening to this. If you have any questions,